I'm going to celebrate my 200th video by opening some comics from the professor. Hey there, today I have a comic book unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up a great box of comics from Professor Comics from Atomic Avenue. I've talked about this seller before. He's a member of the comic book community that is dearly missed, and his collection is for sale on Atomic Avenue. And I try and treat myself maybe once every couple of months to an order from Professor's Comics. His brother is, I think, running his store, but keeping his and his brother's collections separate. And I love to just go on there, click under his store, and just go through all of the great books that he has for sale, just to reminisce and for nostalgia's sake. And with this being my 200th video, I really thought it was appropriate to put together sort of a very classical and typical order that I create. And this order is not just a stack of near mint comics. There's a couple of near mint minuses. I believe a couple very fines in here are a very fine plus. So I'll take a look at the condition of these as well. I do keep track of every seller's sort of ratings in terms of the expected quality of the comics that I would receive. And with the Professor's Comics being an older collection, I don't expect near mint books to be 9.4 and above, and I understand that. But, you know, somewhere around that VF near mint or maybe a near mint minus range is kind of my expectation. And so when I'm looking for older books in high grade, that's kind of my target range, comparing things to fair market value. And I just kind of select a nice handful of books. And like I said, I treat myself to this every couple of months. So let me get to the unboxing. I'll show you what I bought. If there's anything that's interesting there, I'll go ahead and grade them, and we'll take a look at the condition. And then at the end, I will show you what I paid for these books, compare the cost of each book to the fair market value of the book in raw condition, and then we'll maybe play around with some of the CGC grades and see if any of these are sending in for grading. So let's get to the unboxing. Okay, here is that order from Professor's Comics. It was sent priority mail in this envelope. I'm gonna guess that there's just comics in here. There's no box or anything, but hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe there's some cardboard, fingers crossed. Let's get it open. Okay, I think I'm in. I know I always speed that part up, but it took me a long time to get through that because I wasn't sure how everything was packed on the inside, and I was deathly afraid of slicing. This little plastic slice tool that I have, the tip of it is very, very small, so I use that so that I'm not taking like a lightsaber or a safari knife into the books and slicing all the way through, but I'm still worried of just nicking the books. So anyway, I got through it eventually, and let's take a look at the books themselves. It's still, the tape monster is so much tape, and I really can't stand it, but I understand you got to get the books to the destination safely, but man, oh man. Okay, that struggle I think is over with. Let's take a look at these books here. Okay, lots of great Bronze and Copper Age goodness here. We have Captain America 165. This is from 1973. This was one of the books that I did not get in near mint, so I'm a little curious to open it, and I'll talk about it here as I get it open. Looks like it's bagged backwards. All of my comic book collecting OCD is firing away here. All the tape bagged backwards. And let's check out the condition here. So this is a book listed in very fine. It doesn't look too bad. It does have a lot of black background elements in the top here near the trade on the bottom. So you kind of expect to see things like that right there near the S. So yeah, probably a VF. Fairly clean, probably wouldn't need that much cleaning. Definitely is pressable. Not too many spine ticks, so really not bad. Just general corner wear. So a very, very presentable book. Unfortunately, it will get dinged just for some of the wear and tear at the bottom there. So yeah, I think it's fair. Something like that could even knock it down to maybe even the, I don't think we're going all the way down to the fine range or fine plus, but maybe 7.5, somewhere around there. Again, a really great book to maybe give a once over and press out to see if maybe it could be buffed up into a 9. But for the most part, a pretty solid book. Nothing super significant here. We have the yellow claw strikes, but just a great 20 center, written by Steve Englehart with pencils and cover art by Sal Buscema. All right, I'm just going to give it a fresh bag and board real quick. I'll go ahead and give it the final grade later, but still I'm thinking probably somewhere around the 7 or 7.5. That looks much better. Much, much nicer. Next one, this is a little bit of a run of Fantastic Four, and again, why not save some money and put comics on both sides? Fantastic Four 249 from 1982, December 1982, and this is part of the John Byrne run, so he did the cover art, he wrote it, did the interiors, pencils and ink, Gladiator on the cover. Really, for me, just continuing to fill out the John Byrne Fantastic Four run, because it's not limitless stories, but in terms of what we can do in the MCU with Fantastic Four, we know Feige loves the John Byrne run, and he's going to probably pull some of the storylines and elements from there. But nevertheless, just great cover. Looks to be in pretty good shape. This one was purchased near mint. Really great, solid, striking colors here. And a book that I needed to fill in that run of the Byrne Fantastic Four. On the back is Fantastic Four 265. This one is from April 1984, and this is the issue where She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four. I don't believe she's going to be joining the Fantastic Four in her upcoming Disney Plus show, but with She-Hulk getting some attention from the show, and this being the issue that she joins the FF, with Thing quitting, could we see She-Hulk popping up in a Fantastic Four movie down the road? Who knows? But this was always, and I love this too, the green question mark. Like, who could that be with the green hair? So again, just collecting these great books in the Byrne run of Fantastic Four, and keeping that going is Fantastic Four 272. In this one, it's the first cameo appearance, or first appearance, depending on how you want to word it, of Nathaniel Richards, the father of Reed Richards. This is the alternate reality scenario where we have a little time travel, maybe some relation to Kang. And this book took off, while Loki was on, and there was a lot of speculation with Kang and so forth and the TVA. And so now that that's cooled off, I go back and I pick these up, and they're pretty affordable. No comic on the back there. That too, this was a near mint minus book. I don't see any really significant spine ticks anywhere, so probably just a little bit of creasing that could be pressed out. All right, so this is a fun one for me. This is Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions number 3. This is just a great book from my childhood. The cover scared me. I didn't really understand. It's not really, I would say, at the same level of like Crisis or Secret Wars, the Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. It's just a fun, quick, limited series where certain teams of heroes are fighting each other. And in this particular issue, there's a character and kind of in a robe or hood, and takes the hood off, and it happens to be this character Death, which again, as a kid reading this book and looking through it and looking at the art, I'm watching the heroes fight and all of this, and then you get kind of hit up with with the character of death and what all that means. And I need to have a bin of comics that scared me as a kid. This would be in it. But this is just great. It's a great, just like, again, put lots of characters together. I used to play the role playing game, the Marvel role playing game, where you can take an existing character and kind of tweak their attributes or create your own character. I loved all of that, the RPG back in the day, and you could set up, different characters fighting each other, and maybe you wouldn't have Captain America and Daredevil really fighting necessarily all the time. They should be on the same side for the most part, but you could create some interesting matchups, and that's kind of what this did. It created some interesting teams, almost like a Marvel team up, like Avengers style crossover with the X-Men, and it was just kind of crazy. But again, I wanted to pick this up. This book was listed in near mint, and it looks really, really good for that dark background. I don't see a lot of spine issues there, so this will be another fun one to grade and see if that gets the 9.4 or above. All right, more tape. And speaking of Marvel Team Up, we've got Marvel Team Up 23. This is the classic battle between Human Torch and Iceman. Again, who will win? Fire and ice. Fire melts ice, but ice can freeze fire, I guess? I don't know. This one, unfortunately, looks like it took a little bit of damage here from the bag. But this one was listed in VF condition. So I'm going to pop this open again just to kind of see what a VF book looks like. And when I'm buying these that are not near mint, what I do is I take my analysis that I would normally do with near mint books and look at 9.4 averages and CGC and fair market value. And what I do is I just scale it down to very fine. So trying to reduce risk when I'm buying comics, it also works at different tiers. So, and what I mean by that is the price that I paid for this, if it's truly in only a very fine condition, if I were to get it graded and it did come back as a VF, then I could at least get my money back or maybe add a little bit of value to my collection. And certainly if it's a pressable book and I could get it above VF, then even better. But there's some general creasing up here. Kind of see right there. Those are pressable. That's not bad. The spine looks really, really nice. It's really just right in there. There's just a hairline of a color break right in there, but pretty good otherwise. Just a little dirty, but not bad. Corner looks great. That's excellent. It's just down here that needs to be pressed out a little, but honestly, maybe it was just more of the bag that was damaged. It looks great. Yeah, it just has that very light dirt on the surface that should be able to come up pretty easily, with just some general spotting there, maybe some ink spots, but that I would just give a once over and leave it. You could maybe take an eraser to it and clean that up too, but this one looks really nice. So this could be a little bit of a steal where I could work on it, and I think if everything comes out, it could probably get up to a 9.4. As I kind of move it back here in the light, it's just some additional dirt, kind of hard to see there, but that I know I can get out. And the pages probably at worst are off-white to white. So not bad. That one I'm pretty happy with. Okay, I'm going to put this one in a fresh bag and board as well. But this one is a great example. It's definitely in the VF NM range, somewhere in there. But what I'm excited about is this one is a very, very good book to press and clean. There it is in a fresh bag and board. The colors look outstanding too. So it doesn't look faded. I mean, that's just super bright, nostalgic, great perspective on the cover art there. Just fantastic. Gil Kane on cover art on this one. I'd love to be able to press and clean this and get it in that 9.4 or above. Like I said, that would be a great win. So that's another reason where I don't mind taking the risk on some of those books, but I do prioritize which books. I prioritize very fine and fine. When I'm looking at heritage auctions, I look for books around the 6.0 range, and on Atomic Avenue, I'll look at VF. And as long as it kind of fits within my rankings, where it's sort of a safer buy at that grade, again, meaning that I could maybe submit it for grading, and it would be, after the cost to get it graded, that it could kind of work out and it at least be worth my time and money to get it graded, where it's a break even situation or above. And this really, so far, this is the gem in the order, in my opinion, in terms of being able to maybe improve it. This one I was surprised to see, with his collection being a lot of really older Silver to Copper Age range books. This is Secret Avengers 19. This got popular when Moon Knight came out, or when the trailer was coming out, and Mr. Knight was going to be on it. This is the first appearance, I guess, where Mark Spector is in some sort of costume that's basically a white business suit with a mask. And then really it doesn't become kind of a thing in the story until Moon Knight #1 in 2014. So this is from 2011, written by Warren Ellis, with pencils by Michael Lark and cover art by John Cassidy. So it has Moon Knight in the story, but then he's shown in what becomes the Mr. Knight costume. So people were speculating on this. This is the first appearance of Mr. Knight. I didn't really buy into it then. I bought into it after the show ended, because I enjoyed the show. I really liked the character. I would love to see a sequel. I thought Oscar Isaac did a tremendous job with the character. I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to add this book to sort of my Moon Knight collection, and was surprised to see it, like I said, from 2011. And this book was listed in near mint. So what I'm hoping is, with this being a little bit more of a modern book, maybe the condition was overlooked and it could be a 9.8. Looks pretty clean, so fingers crossed. Oh, one slipped in here. We got a little bonus of 2 comic books in one bag and board. How could I miss Spawn #19? This one, it has cover art with Greg Capullo. The note on this one is that it was originally released possibly out of order. And I was just talking with another professor, Professor Salty, around an upcoming Spawn Batman project with McFarlane and Capullo. And this book is interesting, #19, because Capullo did the cover and interiors, but I don't think McFarlane had anything to do with the book. Like, I mean, he's obviously the creator of Spawn, but didn't write the particular issue. And from the release schedule, because of the original Spawn and Batman crossover, this was released, I think, out of order after issues 21 through 24. It doesn't add any value or any other significance to the book. It's just kind of a one-off Spawn story, featuring a character called Houdini, and trying to just keep my original set of Spawn books in order. I was missing issue 19. It was pretty affordable, so I grabbed it. But just some interesting little things about this book. So yeah, wanted to grab that. And then on the other side is kind of the book that I was about to talk about, which is Star Wars 41. Most of the time when I place an order for back issues, I really have found one book I'm looking for. And then I kind of surround the book with maybe just some other comics that I want to get from a particular seller, or I just start browsing. But it's like going into an LCS and finding that one book, and you're kind of holding on to it, or you give it to the shop owner and just say, hey, I want this book, and you just set it aside while I browse. But you've got that one book, and this was that one book. I didn't have this one in my Star Wars run. This is obviously 41, the issue before 42, which is the first appearance of Boba Fett. This is the first cameo appearance of Yoda. He's listed here and depicted in the shadows, but great cover art here with no characters on the cover unless you count the character box. It's just the Millennium Falcon being chased by a Star Destroyer through the asteroid field as the adaptation of Empire Strikes Back continues. So with the Mandalorian comic book coming out, that's been taking a real beating, because I don't know why people thought this, but I think some folks thought it was going to be a new Mandalorian story, but it was solicited as an adaptation. And this is the way that comics work. They had adaptations, and it was maybe not panel for panel or word for word, but it was a summary of whatever it was adapting. And Marvel would do this with several of sort of the sci-fi or adventure books. So the fact that they returned and did it for Mandalorian is a little interesting. But I definitely understand being disappointed if you open it up and read it and go, well, that was the same as the show, kind of what an adaptation is. But this book, I saw the professor had it available for sale. I wanted to grab it raw. It was listed in a near mint minus, and I'm very curious to see how this book grades out. But it looks super strong. I can definitely see a couple of tiny spine ticks right there, but really not bad. So, if this were to grade out as a 9.2, that's great. But what I'm seeing here consistently, again, not to bring up the Marvel Team Up book again, but the colors, right? You can just tell that these books were stored properly and stored well. Great, great colors on this book. I'd love to be able to slab this and display it. Really, really great. Really happy with that one. And the last book, this book was a Very Fine Plus from 1974, and this is Swamp Thing number 9. I am not a Swamp Thing fan. I'm not a Swamp Thing collector. Of course, now that I have this book, I think it makes me a Swamp Thing collector because I own it. But I'm very carefully trying to get some of the tape out of the way here. But this is a classic cover by Bernie Wrightson. Again, from April 1974 with the 20-cent cover. Gorgeous. Really nice. It is miswrapped. And with it, again, being a Very Fine, or Very Fine Plus, I guess I should say. I'm going to get this out of the bag and board. Take a little bit of a closer look. But if it's like the other two Very Fine books, then it just needs a little bit of love and attention, and it might be able to press up. Now, it does have some color breaks right there at the top. A little bit of creasing here. And then what I noticed too as I took it out of the bag and board, creasing here along the spine as well. See if I can get that. That one's going to be a little tough to show, but right there I think definitely is dirty. A little dirtier than most of the books, but again, I'm used to that, and I'm able to get that out. Has a bit more, not quite impact crunching, just slightly right there on that corner, but pretty solid otherwise. No tearing, no other, really, really strong. I feel like maybe this gets up to a 9, maybe a 9.2, so I might have another good one on my hands. So honestly, I feel like I haven't obviously graded each of these here, but a nice little collection of potential, I would say. Where, you're talking about, we'll see this when I show you what these books grade out as, if they did get a 9.4 or above, or even like an 8 or an 8.5. So we'll take a look at what the potential professional slabbed grades would be in terms of value, and it'll kind of show you why I invested in these books at the price points that I did. So let's look at the numbers and see how this order turned out. All right, here we are. This is the order I placed with Professor's Comics on Atomic Avenue back on June 3rd, 2022. The entire order cost me $117.05. This particular seller does not offer free shipping, so I had to add an additional $12.05 to the order for shipping, and then I distributed that $12.05 across the 10 books in the order, so that my total cost here adds up and my math is verified as correct. So just looking at the books from a cost perspective and comparing it to the fair market value as provided by Cover Price, it looks like if I were just to sell these books as is, just maybe take a few photos, put them out there on the internet for sale, I would lose about $11.62. So right around what it costs to ship the books. So from a fair market value perspective, if you do throw out shipping, which I don't, but that's where you could see the order was kind of a break even. So why would I do that? Why would I order books around fair market value or pay just a little bit? It's the potential. It's the potential to get these books in high grade and see what they are worth if they are professionally graded. The big winner here was from a raw book perspective was Star Wars 41. I paid $19.21 for that book, and the fair market value is currently sitting at a little over $36. So that was a pretty good buy in terms of getting that book. And again, fair market value for that book, what is the expected grade? Is it around a 9? I would probably say 8 to 9 is maybe what that number represents, but you never know. I think that, it has a shot of being a 9 or a 9.2 at first glance. I'll have to open up and examine it a little bit closer, but still, just from a raw book perspective, that was a great pickup. And because that was the most positive book, there were a lot of negative values here. In particular, that Swamp Thing number 9 paid over $20, and it is currently worth $10.50. I would love to buy the book in as high a grade as possible for $10.50. So again, from a 1974 book, I think fair market value probably does represent maybe a 6 to a 7. So for me to get that book in a very fine plus or above, then I think that that was a good pickup. Secret Avengers was a positive purchase, gaining $1.50 of value. Raw with a $15.71 total purchase cost, and it currently resting at $17.20 of value. Now, what I like to do for fun is plug in my grade. And normally I just throw 9.4 up and down, but I'll try and be accurate for the grade that I actually purchased the book at. So I bought the Captain America 165 in a very fine, Fantastic Four 249 near mint, 265 near mint, 272 is a near mint minus. And I don't believe Atomic Avenue's near mint minus is a 9.2. It's probably closer to a 9. Contest of Champions was a 9. Team Up was an 8. 9.4 in the Secret Avengers. 9.4 on the Spawn. 9.2 on Star Wars 41. And VF Plus on the Swamp Thing number 9. So if I were just to send in the books that had value graded and slabbed by CGC, then I would look to add about $70 of value to my collection, which is not too bad. There are some negatives in here. Fantastic Four 249 coming back in at 9.4. It's only worth $10 in a slab, so I would have spent way too much to get that graded with little return. Fantastic Four 265 in a 9.4, sitting at $120. That's quite surprising to me that it's that high. When I flip these to 9.8s, then I'll maybe keep my eye on that one. That seems very strange for that one to be worth that much. That's the one where She-Hulk joins the FF. But here's 272 at $43. If I thought it was a 9.4 or a 9.6 and it came back a 9.2, at least has a little bit of value. And this one's a little surprising. Swamp Thing number 9 in an 8.5 at $55. Again, this is what I'm talking about when I take some of the books in a lesser grade. Now, I want to point out 165 has no value in an 8. So that was, I don't know exactly why I picked that one up, but I'm normally looking at something like this where, okay, I'm going to pay $20 for this book and it's listed as a VF Plus. It has a CGC value and a VF Plus of $55. So if you're, maybe looking at $25 to $35 to get a book graded, then in a worst case, if it did come back in 8.5, then I'm getting my money back if I were to take the slab and try and sell it, or if I want to just keep it in my PC, then I feel like it's a break-even scenario. But if I were to maybe, hopefully, press it up, then obviously I'd have a little bit of additional value. Okay, so those are the grades based on what Atomic Avenue said, but let's just see what the ceiling is, and this is always fun. I'm not saying that all of these books are a 9.8, but what if they were is the game I like to play. And in this order, I have $2,695.10 worth of comic books in a 9.8. And there, that Swamp Thing, you really see the value jump to $550. Captain America 165 in a 9.8 at $960. Star Wars 41 at $421. Fantastic Four 272 at $327. So a lot of potential there. And I'm not saying any of these books maybe even have the potential to be pressed and cleaned up into a 9.8, but boy, the ceiling is high on a lot of these books, which is fun. So these numbers that we're staring at right now, of course, who wouldn't love to have these books all in a 9.8? But what I end up doing is I use part of that analysis where I look at the scale and the range. And so looking back at Captain America 165, now based on the numbers, I understand why I did what I did there. The potential to possibly acquire that book sight unseen in a 9.8 or in a condition that could be pressed and cleaned up to a 9.8. It was too great. That is wildly unexpected to see that book at $906, almost $1,000 book in a 9.8 currently in this market. And because of that gap, it's worth acquiring the book, because even in a VF, you hear tales of people taking books like from that sort of grade up into a 9.8. You really need the book to be closer to that 9.4, I think, to kind of buff out and clean up and get it over those last couple of grades to the 9.8. But because the potential is there, what that's telling me is there's significance in the book, right? From a grading perspective, either from the census, the type of ink, or the darkness of the ink on the cover, the age. There's something about the book. If you haven't read every comic book, I haven't, and you're not aware of every single story and every single significance, I have to rely on data. I need the data to help me. And what the data is telling me is take a chance on that book, because the ceiling is very high. And I'd like to acquire books with as high a ceiling as possible, even though I know I'm not getting them at that grade. Because what happens is once the book at that super, super high grade gets out of reach for people, then they start to reach back, and they reach back into those lower grades. And that's why I end up targeting books like that are really they're not listed as a key in any database or any app. It's just a great comic book, 1973, but in that 8.0 had no value, but I want to grade that one and see what I can do with it. And again, this order was completely based on Star Wars 41, and then when I started looking at Professor's Comics in his inventory, I saw the Swamp Thing 9 with that great Writes in cover. Again, a book that I would love to be able to improve, slab, and display. Just great nostalgia. Like, think about putting together like a movie room or a theater room and display some of those, like maybe a Tomb of Dracula or a Swamp Thing books. Like, even if you're not a comic book fan, they're just great art pieces and great collectibles to have. So I'm really, really fortunate that I have this opportunity now to be able to not only peruse the professor's collection, but acquire some of his great books. I really feel like I'm a very appropriate collector and receiver of some of his books. I do buy his books and treat them with respect, and try to make sure that I'm taking care of them, and I'm pressing them and trying to preserve them as best I can. And looking at the value of the books too, it just adds to my appreciation. So I really appreciate the professor's brother making these books available for us. So check him out on Atomic Avenue. And thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.